Today, I'm going to show you how to use Dollar Tree items to make your home moody and dark academic for fall. My name is Crafty Kathy, and I'm so happy and thankful that you stopped in to craft and spend a little time with me today. The first DIY is going to be one of those Moody walls, you know, where you see all the different pictures. I just wanted to give you some examples of some of the things that I used. This is actually a mirror, and I love to use some of the Dollar Tree mirrors because they have really nice designs. Don't think of them for what they're intended for, but think of them as what they can be. Like this is just a wall plaque. It's a hanger. We can use that. And I thought this would be really cute. It's one of their little coffin signs, and we're going to take the bottom off and we're going to use that as though it is a frame on the wall. I also do have some that are actual frames like this one. I like the shape of it, and I love this one. It's like it reminds me of a puzzle, I guess. And then this one, a mirror came in this, but like I said, just think of what you can use it for. When you see those gallery walls that people are doing, they always have these really cool shapes. They're not just an everyday picture frame. I liked this one because of the beading. So what I did was take all of these outside. I spray painted most of them black because that is the color that I see a lot of, and then I spray painted a few of them gold. Now we're going to get our pictures ready that's going to go in the frames. This is actually a Christmas transfer that my friend Brandy over at the DIY Struggle creates. These are great priced, and she also has like decoupage paper also if you like to do decoupage. Now, even though this is a Christmas transfer, these mushrooms are very moody, and also the ones with the music notes. I found that to be very moody. I'm also going to cut out the owl that's toward the top of this page, and I'm also going to use the butterfly on the other page. Anytime when you see moody decor, all of these elements go perfect with it. Also, on every one of these moody walls you see, you notice old-timey pictures. I got these off of Creative Fabrica, and I actually have a link down below where you can get this for just $3.99 a month. I think they let you try it out for free for about a week, so you really should go try it out because there's tons of fonts, graphics, images, PNGs. I mean, it is well worth $3.99 a month. I also have a picture of a raven and some mushrooms that I just Googled and hit the word images at the top, and that's what I got. And we're going to start off with this frame. I totally didn't show this one a minute ago. I got this at Dollar Tree a few weeks ago in their $5 section, and it makes this hideous laugh, and one of her eyes turns blue. Don't ask me, it's crazy. But anyways, I got it because I loved the shape of the frame. Now, even though it's a plastic frame, you can do things to it so it doesn't look plastic. So all I'm going to do to this one right now is just open it up really quick. When I got it open, I solved the mystery of the one blue eye. Guys, it's a Dollar Tree product. You know how sometimes their stuff is, made. It costs probably 2 cents to make this. Don't you think for a minute I'm not going to take it back because I paid $5 for it and I'm cheap, okay? So I am going to take it back, even though it's crazy that her eyes turn blue. I want both of my lights to work, okay? So anyways, look at the frame. It's so pretty. And here I am realizing I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do with this frame because I'm taking it back. So we're just going to leave it as is, but it still looks good in the end. Then I realized that I totally forgot to put the molds on these other frames. Now, here's the thing. When I'm up doing like a Dollar Tree frame, I love to use my IOD molds. These came from Dainty Flourishes. That's what these molds are from. And I get my molds over at Milton's Daughter with my friend Lori. I'll leave her information down below in case you want some molds. But that is the easiest way to make a frame really nice and elegant looking. And anytime you see one of these Moody walls, that's what you see is very ornate, like old-timey looking, just beautiful, elegant frames. I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue on the back for video purposes. You know, normally I use my Type Bond Quick and Thick glue if I want my molds to have a really good hold. But for the video purposes, I just used hot glue so that we could get the ball rolling. I quickly went through and just put the hot glue on the back of each of these molds and put them back down exactly how I have them here where you can see them. And I could have just whooped myself for, you know, not putting these on first and then spray painting them. So after I got the molds on, I had to take those few pieces back outside and just repaint over that area where the molds were, because you want it to look cohesive and have the same color all the way around. And that comes to my next point I want to make. The paint that I used was the metallic gold, and it's the Rust-Oleum 2x metallic gold, and I loved the way that it turned out for that gold color that you see. Now, I was at the end of my spray paint, and you know how it kind of splatters and makes a little bit of a mess, but that's okay because we're going to cover it up anyway. I'm going to start out with the picture of the mushrooms, and I really liked the way that it looked with this frame. So what I did was laid the frame down on the top of it so I could see exactly where I wanted it to go. I just traced it out with my very fine thin Sharpie, and then I cut that piece off. And that's it. This one is as good as done. I'm just going to pop it back in there. And that does remind me to tell you that I did print these out on just regular old printer paper. It's not even cardstock. However, when I do print stuff out on the regular printer paper, I use that Rust-Oleum matte clear to protect it from running or the colors fading. Now, of all these vintage pictures that I have, this one of the girl is my favorite. She's just spooky looking. So what I did was just blow the picture of her up, made it bigger, and I just cut it out, and I'm going to put it in that one frame that I have to take back. I just used double-sided tape to pop it in there. Now I'm going to grab my next frame, and this is the one that I called the puzzle frame. These are the original size that came out. They're about like a 4x6, and there's 4 prints on each page. Now, these are some of the ones that I got from Creative Fabrica, and I think I pulled this up under like where you can search in their website, and I think I put like spooky vintage people or something to that effect. You just put in what you're looking for, and it'll pull it up. But anyways, I was trying to find which one I wanted to go in here that was going to look good. I wanted to do a guy because I had mostly girls on here, so I wanted to put something of a guy in here. And I was trying to get one to fit correctly in there. I realized it's going to have a little bit of the white peeking out. So what I decided to do was just cut the picture off and put it in there. And the brown that's on the cardboard behind will basically just blend in. So I went through and I picked out this first picture of this handsome man on the top, and I went ahead and cut it out. And I'm totally wrong because the background was not brown like I said, it was black. But it just absolutely looks like it was meant to be there. Like it doesn't look odd or like I just throwed it together, which is kind of basically what I did, to be honest with you. I mean, I didn't go into any great detail to make sure that it was perfect. But guys, this is so easy to do and turns out so pretty. The next one that I'm going to put together is going to be this round frame that I painted gold. I wanted to do a gold one. And I did not even realize that the transfer that I was going to put down had black writing. I'm putting black on black because the background's black. But I did realize it before I actually stuck it down. And I was like, you know what? It's going to look fine because the Moody Wall is meant to be kind of mysterious and a little different. And honestly, when I pulled the transfer up, it kind of looked like a grayish hue. The wording on it did. So it really looked good for this type of wall that I'm going for. It works. If I could give you one piece of advice on how to do a wall like this, is don't try to be too careful. Don't try to make sure that everything is matchy-matchy. Make it look like something where somebody would stand back and look at that and just be like, what? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, kind of in awe of it. Like, this doesn't make sense. But it totally makes sense. Like, when you sit back and look at it, you're like, it's just something that just kind of pulls your eye in and makes you wonder. Something almost kind of mysterious. If you've never used a transfer before, they are one of the easiest ways to make decor gorgeous. And these are some of Brandy's transfers that she makes. And she's the same one that makes the decoupage paper that I have been talking about. The next one that we're going into is going to be this gorgeous raven. I wasn't exactly sure what size I was going to need because I didn't know what frame I was going to put him in. So, guys, I just made all different kinds of sizes. And I was like, I know one of these birds is going to fit in one of these frames. And that's what I'm saying. I wasn't overly cautious about doing anything. I was being kind of haphazard about it. You might want to say that it's like I just didn't give a crap. You know what I'm saying? Like I just throwed it together. And that's kind of the way that it's meant to be. That's the way that it looks good. If you don't believe me, try it for yourself. Sometimes the things that I am the most proud of are those things that are, like Bob Ross says, are the happy little accidents. Those little things that you didn't mean for that to happen, but when you step back and look at it, you're like, you know what? That really works. And sometimes I surprise myself when I just, I don't know, when I just kind of halfway do stuff. Sometimes I'm like, the harder you try, you'll never meet that mark. But if you put, like, you're just like, it's going to work, and follow it through, sometimes those are the things that you are the happiest with. Anyways, I'm going to put the back on this thing, and we are moving on. The next thing that I got the idea to do is grab some of these spiders from Dollar Tree. Now, I could have stood to use one just a little bit smaller than this for the frame that I had. But I decided to chop some of his legs off. That way he would fit on the frame right. So I just kind of chopped them off to the point to where they touched the frame. That way, in case I needed to put a little bit of glue. I realized that I hadn't painted the back of this frame. It was still brown. And I didn't like that. So what I did was just grab my muscadine wine. It is a beautiful Moody color. And it is made by Dixie Belle Paint. And I got it a few years ago, so I really just need to use it up. And I just put a little bit of glue to hold his body down and stuck him right in that frame, and he worked out well. Now we've pretty much got all of our frames put back together, and now comes the fun part. We're going to embellish them. I've noticed that a lot of the colors that goes with the Moody and the dark academia are kind of like a black and a gold as far as the frames go, or maybe like a dark brown. So what I wanted to do is use my rub and buff in the color antique gold, because it is the perfect gold color for like Halloween, Moody, at least it is in my mind. And then I have some black rub and buff. What I decided to do was just kind of go around. It doesn't take much of this stuff. And I feel like in Moody decor, you don't need a lot of the gold, just a little touch of it. And that's what I'm going to do with my first frame, the Raven frame. Now, this is when the magic happens with these Dollar Tree frames. You take something that is a cheap $1.25 frame from the Dollar Tree, and by using the molds and using just a little bit of the opposite color of rub and buff, you just see it come to life, and it literally looks like one of those photos that are in like an old Victorian spooky house, or at like a mysterious house, something that people would just sit and stare at because it's so pretty. And if you feel like you went too overboard, like with the gold, you just put a little bit of the black color on a different finger and just kind of blot it on there, just to kind of knock down some of that brightness, or to kind of, make the colors look the way that you want them to. Now here on the gold frame, the color that I chose to put on it was the black, and it's called ebony. That's the color of the rub and buff that I'm using. And at first I just kind of went here and there, just very little bit. And then I got the idea to do like a dry brushing technique. So I put a little bit out on a brush, and I'm just using this cheap little brush that I get from the Dollar General. These are actually basting brushes that come out of their baking section. I put a little bit on the end, like I said, like I'm just dry brushing, and I was blotting it on there. And it created the most beautiful but spooky effects on this photo frame. And then I realized that my spider was glittery. See, I found him after the fact and thought that I was going to use him, and totally forgot to spray paint him and get that glittery look off of him before I put him in the frame. So I took him out and spray painted him and put him back in. Now we're working on our rounded frame, and I liked the look of that dry brushing so much that I decided to do this all over this gold frame. And once again, I just put down a little bit of the black, the ebony colored rub and buff. I put a very, very little bit on the end of my brush and just kind of blotted off the excess and just went all over it, tapping, tap, 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 all the way around until it gave me that muted color that I was looking for. Then every once in a while, I would just kind of stop and look back at it and see what I thought it needed. And I would add a little bit of the ebony on a finger and just kind of go around it anywhere where I thought that it needed some. And I just kept adding that black and just adding little bits and pieces of the like streaks, I guess you could say, of black here and there with my finger until I liked the way that it looked. Now we are almost at the finishing line, and the next one that I'm going to work on is going to be the piece that I called the puzzle piece, and he's already painted black. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of the gold and do it just like I did before, just kind of rub it in here and there. And I wanted to see what the gold would look like if I kind of dry brushed it on just like I did the black. And I really liked that effect, because that's a thing on these mood walls that I've noticed. They're not all the same. Like if the frames were all the same, it would be too uniform and it would look too perfect. It wouldn't look right. But since they're all kind of mismatched and done in different ways, it works. And then the very last one that I'm going to do here is just this block that I had, and I painted it black and put this gorgeous owl transfer on. And that one speaks for itself. That owl up against that black background is so pretty, I don't have words for it. And I just kind of highlighted it with that vintage gold rub and buff. Oops, I only thought I was finished, but I totally forgot about this last one, and I promise this is the last one. Now, this little coffin picture is out at Dollar Tree right now because I got this a few weeks ago. And all I did to this one is that dry brush effect with the black. Just put a little bit on my brush and go around to kind of muddy it up and make it look mysterious. And then I just used my heat tool to heat up the glue on the bottom, and that piece just kind of peeled right off. People spend a lot of money to make Moody walls like this, but you don't have to, because you have Crafty Kathy on your side giving you all my secrets. I only spent $10 on the whole wall. For the second DIY, I wanted to try my hand at one of those busted canvases that I've been seeing all across Pinterest and YouTube. Now, I had to teach myself how to do this as I went along, so I'm going to tell you what to do and what not to do so that you won't have to try to swim and navigate your way through. I'm just going to start out with a Dollar Tree canvas picture here, and then this is just a piece of cardstock. It does not matter what the cardstock looks like. I just really needed a white piece of cardstock, but didn't have any, so I just traced out the size that I needed for my 8x10 canvas frame, and I cut it out. The next thing that you're going to need is whatever image you want to be coming out from that busted canvas, and I'm going to pick this one that's in the upper right hand corner of the girl because she's very moody and mysterious looking. And this is some of the decoupage paper that my friend Brandy sells over at the DIY Struggle, and I just kind of did a rough cut of the piece of decoupage paper that I wanted because I didn't want to mess up any of the other prints. And lastly, you're going to need another piece of decoupage paper of your choice that's going to go on the front of your canvas, or you can paint it. It's up to you. Now, the first mistake that I made, and I'm going to let you guys know just so that, like I said, it'll be easier for you, is not to tear my edges. Now, y'all know when I'm decoupaging, I never have straight edges like this, but I thought it doesn't matter. You're not going to see any of those edges. I was wrong. So if I could go back and do it again, I would say to definitely tear your edges around your picture. You don't want a bunch of it torn off. You just want enough just so that it will blend in. I promise you, if you have straight edges, it doesn't look as natural as it does if you have the torn edges, because when you put that up against the background, it just looks more natural. I just used some glue stick because that is my favorite way to decoupage anything that you can decoupage with, because there are no wrinkles and no problems. And I laid this gal right down in the middle. Now, since I'm choosing not to paint the front of my canvas, I'm going to have to cut out that brown cardstock, which is the color that I chose to go on the front of my canvas. So I just traced it out to that 8x10 size so that it would fit right across the front. You're going to want to put a napkin on the back side of your 8x10 canvas frame. I wanted one that's going to match my picture pretty good, so I chose this one, and one of my subscribers sent this to me last year. I'm just going to kind of do a basic rough cut of the size that I need because it just needs to fit inside that frame. Some of these napkins are tricky. Some of them have one ply on the back, some of them have two. This one had two, and you can usually just about see through the napkin when you know you're right. So just take off all those layers, and then you're going to grab some Mod Podge. I'm using the matte. It really doesn't matter much. If you want a matte look, I would think that the matte would be the best. Go ahead and put some down on the back side of your frame. And you don't want to put too much and you don't want to put too little. It would be hard for me to tell you exactly how much to put down, but I think I had a pretty good amount. You can see how much I'm using here, and I covered the whole back side, flipped it over, did the front side, and then I let it absolutely dry. When it was totally dry, I grabbed my piece of cardstock that I want to go on the front of my canvas. I'm going to use this darker brown side, and you lay it down on the top of it. We're going to put down a piece of parchment paper over the top, and I'm heating up my little iron, and I just got this iron about a week ago. Now, since I use a glue stick to do most of my decoupage, this is the first time I've ever even tried this technique where you let the Mod Podge dry completely, and then you put the parchment paper over and you just run your iron over it. Now, the only thing I can tell you about this is to keep your iron moving and make sure that you get all the edges good so that it will grab on. It like heats up that Mod Podge and it will grab onto that cardstock and Just put it on there exactly how it needs to be. I'm not crazy about this technique now that I've done it because, my goodness, it just seems like a lot of fuss to have to go through to get something to stick when you're used to just slapping on a glue stick and popping it on there and having zero problems and zero wrinkles. But anyways, I can at least say I done it. I went around here, got my piece of paper to stick on the front, and I'm going to flip it over and do the exact same thing to that napkin on the back. Now, of course, that cardstock is a whole lot thicker than this napkin, so it took less time to do the napkin, and it was much easier knowing that my edges are stuck with the napkin, whereas with that cardstock, I was just kind of guessing until I, lifted up the paper to make sure that it wasn't going to pull away. I noticed a tiny little minuscule piece was hanging over from the front of the brown cardstock. So I just took my finger sander and kind of sanded that down because we're going to cover that right back up anyways. You're not going to see it, but I definitely didn't want any of my paper sticking off the edge. Now comes the part where we're going to cut it. And you grab you a box cutter or X-Acto knife. Just make sure it's really sharp. That will make your life a lot easier. And I cut it. I'm going to first make like an X pattern. And the one that I watched, the tutorial said to cut almost all the way up to the area where the wood was. I would cut even less than that, to be honest. And you'll see here, I went all the way down one, and then I would flip it around to where I was cutting toward the middle because you don't want to like pull up your piece. And then I realized, oh no, I totally forgot to seal my napkin again before I started cutting. I was afraid that my napkin would fly away, and it almost did. But I flipped it over, put some Mod Podge on here, and just covered it very slowly, very carefully to make sure that none of my edges were going to come up. And then I let it dry. Now back to the box cutter. When I finished making the cut, what I did was make it the way that you would make like a snowflake. You're going to make a total of 8 cuts in your piece, and this is what I meant by I would start at the edge and go toward the middle because you don't want to pull that up and mess your napkin up. The next thing that I did was kind of like a practice run. You see, I'm just kind of pulling back the edges. This is why they call it a busted canvas. These edges are going to be kind of peeling away and look like the picture in the background is like busting through the canvas. So we just want to kind of open these up to make sure that they're going to look right when we start gluing them. The next thing that I'm going to start doing, and I'm going to show you this very slowly, is you take one of your little pieces of pie, and there will be 8 pieces. You're going to put some glue on the end. And for video purposes only, I am using the hot glue. However, if I could recommend something, probably it would be better to use like an E6000 or a more permanent glue, because over time that hot glue is going to turn loose, or I think that it would. It might not, but then again, why would you want to take the chance after doing all this work? So I just went through with my hot glue gun, and I'm going to put just a little bit on the tip end of each one of these, roll it up, and definitely take your time. And I would stick my finger in there and kind of press down so that it would get a really good hold. You don't want these to be all like uniform or perfect by any means, or, like them kind of like all at the same length, I guess you would say. You want it to kind of look like, the picture behind it is literally busting through. Now at this point, I'm just repeating everything that I'm doing. I'm going to go all the way around to all 8 of my pieces, so I am going to speed it up a little. The main thing that I can tell you is just take your time, use a really good glue, and go slow. If one of the sides happens to pop up for some reason, put it right back down. But then again, it goes back to the type of glue you're using. Just be mindful of that as you move along. Now, here is the point where I realized that cardstock that I put my lady down on was not going to be strong enough. So I just took, this is a piece of cardboard and it has white front on it. So I'm going to put her down onto this. If you will notice, I had realized at this point that I didn't want those straight edges and that they were going to show. And this is when I actually came back and just kind of wet the very tip ends all the way around my picture and very, very carefully kind of peeled it off. You'll notice that it's not a perfect rectangle that I have the lady cut out of. It looks like, you know, it's kind of like the edges are torn. So here I'm just cutting off that thicker cardstock that we are going to just decoupage her down onto. So after I got her decoupage down, I just did a quick practice run, and you'll want to do this several times just to make sure that the picture in the background is going to look right with the way that you have the busted frame coming out. And everything looked great on mine. And once again, for video purposes, I'm using hot glue. But if you want a really good stick, use an E6000 or a super glue. And I'm just going to place her right down on there. And bada bing, bada boom, our lady is gorgeous. And I hope these instructions was easy enough for you to understand, because sometimes it is the hardest thing to explain what you're doing, and it's just so much easier to see what I'm doing. I grabbed the color called Layered Chocolate by DIY Paint because I thought that would be a great color to put on the edges, and I went all the way around my girl and just painted that on all four sides. And the last thing is I put some flowers down on the left-hand side here because the way that I had placed my girl, I wish that the picture of her would have been a little bit wider, but it wasn't. I worked with what I had, and I wish it would have been wider, but since it wasn't, I felt that it would look best to put me some flowers on that left-hand side to kind of cover up that area where the picture stopped, if that makes sense. So I just cut down the backs of the flowers so nothing would stick up and popped a few of those sunflowers on there that matched her exactly. I ended up putting one more of the sunflowers on the very top left-hand corner and this little wooden leaf that I think came from Dollar Tree. And I hope you like it. The third and last DIY is so quick and simple, if you blink, you just might miss it. I have 3 candlesticks, and of course they're all from Dollar Tree. Now 2 of them match, but one of them is a little bit different, but that's okay because when you're doing Moody and Dark Academia, it just kind of works. So I cleaned them up real good. And I like to make my molds up ahead of time. That way I have them and can grab them for whenever I need it. This one came off of the Frames 2 mold. Frames 1 mold. And I'm going to take a tumbling tower block, and I'm using hot glue once again for video purposes. And I'm going to glue my tumbling tower block right smack dab in the middle of the biggest candlestick. And I just held it there for a minute, make sure we got a good hold, and then I'm going to glue that mold right on the front of the candlestick. The next thing that I did was take these all outside and spray paint them with my black Rust-Oleum 2 times because I wanted them all to be cohesive and to paint over that medallion to make it look like it is, you know, one solid piece. This is the Rust-Oleum 2 times matte clear that I was telling you that I put on all of my prints when I print them out on regular old copy paper. If they ever get wet or if you put Mod Podge on them, the colors are not going to run if you do it 3 times. What I do is put a light coat. I almost just kind of mist it on there and then let it dry, and then I repeat that 2 more times for a total of 3 times because it will seal that paper and protect it to a certain extent. Now, the next thing that I did was just grab the picture of the raven that I'm going to use, and I'm going to push it in with my fingernail to kind of give an indentation around it so I will basically know where to cut it out at. So I cut it out in the shape of that mold, exactly where the indentation was. And guys, y'all are going to think I'm a nut, but my husband brought me this ice cream and I was taking a break and eating my ice cream. I had cut my camera off and I forgot to hit record as I put my little picture of my raven on there. But all I did was decoupage him on with my Elmer's glue stick like I always do, and then I used the vintage gold rubbing buff to accentuate the mold. And I am so sorry. If y'all stuck with me through all of today's video, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I would love for you to hit that little red button and become a part of our family, because we sure would love to have you along on this journey with us. And if you did find value or you like this video, please hit that like button. That's the thumbs up button, because that really helps me out on YouTube. And it also helps me out if you'll comment. If you're not one for leaving a comment, just leave me a heart emoji. And I also would love for you to leave a comment at what type videos you would like to see more of, whether it be fall or Halloween or a little bit of both. When you hit the like button and subscribe and leave a comment, all those things really help out my channel tremendously, and I can't thank you enough. I'll see you guys back here next time, Lord willing, and that creek don't rise. Did you know that if you are on a phone or a tablet that you can just touch my face right here and it will subscribe you to my channel? You sure can. You can also tap on one of the videos here, and as soon as this one's over with in just a moment, it'll take you to that next one. I love you guys. God bless you and your families.